This is Mommying While Muslim, recorded live and unedited. Watch as Zeba and Uzma record their podcast, see their reactions, and find out for yourself what all the buzz is about.
One of our sponsors this month is Guidance Residential. They're offering a Ramadan gift to you with $500 off your refinancing. Go ahead and click on our links in order to find out how to get that. This episode is also sponsored by Muslim Kids TV and resources, including Islamic videos, games, and ebooks for your children. Use code MKTV2021 to get a 25% discount off of your annual subscription.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Mommyingwhilemuslim. This is Uzma Jaffrey.
And this is Zeba Hassan, trying not to fall asleep as we sit here today. How are you, Uzma?
I'm good, alhamdulillah. I've been okay. I'm sorry that you're so tired. What's going on?
Well, it's just, I don't know about you, but the sleep deprivation really gets me during Ramadan. It's not the food, it's not the drinks, it's the sleep deprivation. And I don't have an opportunity to nap during the day. And even today, with this later recording, I'm like, I'm going to lie down and relax. And I'm like, if I do that, I will not get up. So
Not get
I
up.
best not do that. So yes, and maybe I'm a baby, but I love, love, love my sleep. So
Yeah.
that is my one sacrifice amongst many that I'm doing in the name of God on this Jummah Mubarak during Ramadan.
Yeah, exactly. And look, it's already been, like you said earlier, 11 days,
11
right? I
days.
feel like it flew by.
I really truly do feel like it flew by. And I have to say, like, this whole year has flown by. And so just sitting and being introspective about everything and what we're doing as we're slowly kind of putting our feet back into the real world makes me kind of a little bit nervous about kind of going back fully to the 100% norm. So I definitely want to sit down and think about what are the things that I learned during this whole COVID period that I want to keep moving forward, and what are things that I'd be willing to kind of bring back into my life.
Yeah, I think that's a good plan. I do think that a lot of people will disagree with you and say this was not the fastest year ever in their lives.
Oh, I felt like it went so fast, and I
Really?
enjoyed every moment of it. Like, I mean, even the kids like coming out of my ears, and my daughter just now walking in and wondering what the heck you're doing at 6 o'clock. All those things allowed me the opportunity to kind of get to know them on a level that I don't think I would have in another year. So for that, I am going to stay grateful and be excited when they go back to school in the fall. That having
Right.
been said. But how
Inshallah.
has your week been, in Uzma?
My week's been good. I've been listening to moms like yourself talking about how tired they are. And, like, when you have older kids and they're fasting with you, talking
Mhm.
about, it's just extra work, right? And then it's like mom pressure to definitely get up because what's the big deal? We can just roll over,
Right.
drink some water for
Drink some
suhoor, maybe have a
water.
date and be done,
Yeah.
like coffee and I'm good. But to get up and make sure that those kids are eating. And I'm like, well, should I say anything? And I'm slowly starting to say things when I'm hearing it because I'm like, really? Like, you guys get up an hour early to cook for your kids who hate your food? My kid's waking me
Yes.
up for suhoor and saying, Ummi,
Yeah.
like the sausage and egg is ready. Like, come on, have suhoor. It's suhoor time. So it's
Oh,
like,
you are lucky girl. So you
I'm,
best not
s-
say
I
anything,
know.
because
I feel
moms
like
are
I
going
need
to
to
get
give
mad
sadaqah or
at you.
something. And it's totally from him. It's not like I told him to get up and make suhoor for me, but he's doing it for himself. So he's just like, he lets me sleep. And when he hears my alarm, he just walks into the room, he turns it off. He's like, Ummi, it's time to get up very gently and wakes me up. And if it's not him, my daughter
Oh.
is doing it because she's trying to fast as well and had her very first fast this year. So
Oh,
alhamdulillah.
yay. I'm so
Yay. 10
excited.
years
And you're
old. I'm like,
obviously
wow.
doing something right. So please share your notes, because mine are like, when are you getting up? What's going on? What are you making me? But honestly, my older ones, because of virtual, I mean, I'll be honest, they just stay up. And I
Right.
just kind of put like a smorgasbord of food, and I'm just like, please pack it
Grace.
up and put it away. And then, they kind of get up, drink water, pray, and go straight back to bed. And I'm 100% okay with that.
Yeah.
it's a different time right now, and we're all doing the best that we can. So hug your baby, because
I
that
know,
is
mashallah, mashallah
a
to my kids, and I
great
can't take
mommy
credit for it.
moment.
It's not me. The hidayah is really from Allah, and that kind of consideration I think just comes from Allah because I did not teach it to nobody. Yeah, it's so annoying. Like when people ask for notes, because I used to ask people for notes, and they would say,
Yeah, so like, how did I
Allah
do
did it,
that?
and it was the most annoying answer, but it's the most true one. It's
Oh, I
so
love
true.
that. Well, I love that. Well, I'm glad that it's working out for you. So you're doing something right. And like I said, pay Sadaqah, and we'll get to
Yeah.
where we can be paying Sadaqah a little bit later. But what
Mhm.
is our soapbox for you and for us this Friday?
So, our soapbox today is about a professor of political science who's actually the head of the political science department at Scottsdale Community College. His name is Nicholas Damask. And he recently won a lawsuit with the community college. And I'm laughing because this is very local to us, and it's a place, a college system that I go and lecture about Islam to. And surprisingly, this college allows him to teach and direct the political science department. A particular Muslim student in his class objected last year to a quiz he gave about. There was like three questions on there that were really problematic and incredibly leading and Islamophobic. And even though the student answered correctly, Professor Damask, it makes me think of like curtains whenever I say his name. Um, Damask counted his answers incorrect because the answer was that Muslims are violent. You can find a copy of the quiz online. So naturally, the student went to the Council on American Islamic Relations, the local chapter, and filed a lawsuit against this particular professor. However, the lawsuit was based on a violation of the student's First Amendment rights, which in a private college are not going to be protected. A student's First Amendment rights to freedom of religion are practiced in public institutions, but not private ones. So naturally lost. And in return, Professor Damas countersued the community college system for not protecting him and his right to academic freedom. And this is huge, guys, because now professors and I believe more teachers are going to request this right to academic freedom where we should be able to teach whatever we want to teach. And, this particular community college does have in their contract that they are not going to dictate what the professors teach. So he wasn't totally wrong. He ended up suing the college for 667 million, no, $667,000. I apologize. But they ended up settling out of court for $155,000. And now Scottsdale Community College is actively seeking the setting up of a committee to protect the academic freedom of its faculty, which is crazy to me because instead of setting up a committee for, I don't know, diversity, equity, inclusivity, or cultural sensitivity, they're deciding to do this. And I think it's going to be really, really important to take a look at where our dollars are going. Guys, we are paying our money for community colleges, for private colleges, for public universities. And we need to make sure that our money is not going to institutions where Islamophobes are sitting. And if they are, then we need to withdraw our money and move on and make a big public stink about it so that everybody knows why we left. You have buying power, people. So I want you to reclaim that buying power. And I will say before this, the only claim to fame that Scottsdale Community College had is being the alma mater of David Spade. If anybody is an old school Saturday Night lover, uh, it for some reason does not make me feel any better about this particular community college, but we will be working actively, at least in Arizona, to make sure that we educate as many of the faculty members and students as we can, as hard as we can with our grassroots activists that are here. So that's our soapbox for today.
I would imagine as part of the settlement agreement, they had to set up that committee. So that is just something
Oh,
I'm thinking is probably what ended up going on. So, because you settle, you go back and forth, and then he's probably like, well, okay, I'll settle for less, but this is what you do. That having been said, it's still crazy and ridiculous. So thank you for bringing it up to our attention. And
mhm.
like you mentioned, money put your money where your mouth is. And if you do have that power, you do have that authority, we really do have that opportunity to make change. So thank you so much for bringing that to our attention. And I will not look at David Spade again the same way.
I still love him. I'm just like, dude, like, I'm
Go
very
talk to your
disappointed in your alma
peeps.
mater. But this is a really important conversation because a lot of kids, juniors right now, or seniors are going out and they're looking at colleges and doing all of this
Hmm.
stuff. Ask questions. Find out,
Yes.
like, what are my political science teachers teaching? What are these science teachers teaching? What are the English teachers teaching? And ask the hard questions like, what is your stance on Islamophobia? How are you going to identify and deal with hate crimes on campus? This is
Right.
sadly something that all of our students have to ask, especially our Muslim students. So
Yeah, that's so funny. My
let the
my
admissions
oldest
committees know that you're
No,
interested in this
exactly.
information.
No, my oldest is on, he's there. My oldest is at a basketball tournament right now, but coincidentally, there are a couple of colleges nearby. So he's going to be looking at that. But that is one of the questions he thinks about. And he asks, like, what is the Islamic life like here? Like,
Mhm.
do you have an Islamic chaplain? Those are all things that people need to know because they do kind of speak to the rights of the American Muslim students on campus. And coincidentally, one of our brand ambassadors just put up on our Facebook group about Islamic life on campuses, and I am definitely going and attending that because that is something that I'd want to know. Like, are kids
Mhm.
walking around? Are they doing? You're entrusting your kids to these organizations, so you want to make sure that they're provided the same opportunities as everybody else. So this
100%.
is a whole nother. This is can turn into a whole nother podcast, like I always like to
Mhm.
say. So we're not going to do that. But thank you so much for bringing that up, and thank you to everyone who has attended, supported our virtual iftar at St. Jude Children's Research Hospital this past Sunday. Our goal was only, I think, $10,000, and we almost doubled that by raising 22,000 and some change, which
Mhm.
is like this close, guys, to our annual giving goal that we wanted for them. So, Sadaqah, guys, we
Mhm.
still have 2/3 of the way of Ramadan going. So if you want to help us get us over, we are asking you to do that. And it goes for research. The Gift to Live covers toys, chemos, groceries for families, oxygen, which I have just recently found out is extremely expensive. And actually, Uzma, thank you for that amazing explanation on Sunday because my Z3 was like, who knew
Ah,
breathing could be that
so expensive.
expensive and that convoluted. Like, he was super
Yeah.
impressed with you. We
Aw.
had amazing endorsement of speakers. Our Quran reciter, she was amazing, and our
Mhm.
other performers. We did all of that in an hour. So if we can do that in an hour, moms can get anything done. We are extremely efficient. And because I am looking at the time right now because my iftar is about to come in about an hour. I am super
She's
excited to continue
hangry.
our I'm hangry, everybody. To continue our new mommy memoirs. And we are super pleased to have the Keto Muslim Mom, Saadia Qureshi. She had made a huge lifestyle change online, and she has like it's like Uzma's keto guru, and she taught her how to make dal and taught countless of other women to eat healthier and more nutritiously. Then her meal and game plans got thrown for a loop, as a lot of us with the pandemic, but hers also had a pregnancy. So she's here today to talk to us a little bit about what she went through, how it affected her, and we're super excited to hear from her. Welcome, Sadia, to Mommyingwhilemuslim.
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you guys for having me.
Assalamu alaikum. We are so excited to have you here. And before we get into the meat of things, we usually give our guests an opportunity to talk about their mom story, a little bit about their kids, and what their momming philosophy is.
Okay, well, I would say that my journey into motherhood was pretty unique. I'm gonna try to keep this as short as possible, but there's been a lot.
Mhm.
So I got married at 21. I was pregnant a month later, and then I gave
Oh,
birth. Yeah. As most desis do,
Yeah.
it's kind of funny because I remember my husband saying something like, Well, if you don't have a kid within the first year, people start asking questions. And I'm like, well, that's
That's a good reason to
interesting.
have kids.
Yeah, right. Yeah, so we were both pretty much babies. I was 21 and he was 27. We had our first daughter at 22. The pregnancy was high risk. We actually had a blood test done around 20 weeks. And they came back. I remember getting the call from a nurse on the phone, and it was just very blunt. She said that there was a 1 in 37 chance that the baby had Down syndrome. And she kind of was like, well, what do you want to do next? It was kind of heartless, not very good
Mhm.
bedside manner for sure. I just remember calling my husband at work and crying, and he had come home that day with like a cute little onesie, and he's like, everything's gonna be okay, and we got
Aw.
this. I had actually like talked to my mom and my grandma, and everyone was just like, "You're 22. This type of thing doesn't happen to young moms because there's a common misconception that it happens to moms who are age 35 or
Mhm.
older." So we actually declined the amnio because, first of all, amniocentesis is high risk. There's a high risk of miscarriage. And also, we really wouldn't do anything differently.
Right.
Being Muslim, we don't believe in abortion. We believe every child is a gift from Allah. So, having said all that, we still did some other testing. I think we did like a fetal echocardiogram that came out normal. And then I remember like around 7 months, a cardiologist actually told me that, look, everything is normal and perfect. You need to stop worrying. And that was like the end of it. I remember just looking at my husband and he's like, okay, you got what you needed. He's saying that everything is fine. So she was full term. She was actually late. I remember his cousins taking me to play basketball because I was 3 days overdue. And it was like, let's get this baby out. Let's get you exercising. But when she came out, I remember just looking at my husband and saying, "Is everything okay?" And he's like, "Yes." And everybody was like, "Yes, everything is okay. Why are you so paranoid?" And it wasn't until 3 days after her birth. So she actually went to the NICU. She had some jaundice, which is pretty typical, jaundice and some feeding issues. So she was in the NICU. And then there was an on-staff pediatrician that came by, and she's like, "Well, I just want to run some tests for some Asian characteristics." I can tell you that right then my heart just sank because, like,
I just
as a mom, you have this like mother's intuition, right?
Mhm.
And everyone kept telling me like everything is fine and you're paranoid and it's all in your head. And when she said that, I just had this like sinking feeling. And it was 3 days after birth. They did some karyotyping, which is like a genetic test. And they confirmed the Down syndrome diagnosis. Even though she didn't look it, she had it. I mean, a genetic test is not something that you can argue. So that's kind of I guess, my entry into motherhood. It was very stressful because so now I'm 22 years old. I go home without my baby. My baby's in the NICU. I'm actually pumping milk and bringing it to the hospital and then feeding her through a syringe. It was tough. And then on top of that, you're dealing with this diagnosis. And I think not really having anybody to talk to, who's like been through this. I mean, you're just in the midst of everything. Like you're sleep
Mhm.
deprived, right? You're postpartum, you're sleep deprived. You're pumping milk and bringing it to the hospital. 8 days, your baby's in the NICU. You don't know if she's going to survive or not. I do remember one of the nurses saying that she's a baby and treat her like a baby. She has all the same needs as
Mhm.
a newborn. So I think that was very helpful. My husband and I didn't really talk about it. I think we were both kind of grappling with it in our own way. I'm a talker, and so I like to talk out my feelings, and he's like the complete opposite. His goal was, I just want my baby home. I want my baby girl to be fine, like, to be well enough to come home, and so we can start our kind of start our journey. So anyways, that was my entry into motherhood. Actually, 2 months after, even though her fetal echo was normal, they actually told us that she needed open heart surgery.
Oh my goodness.
So at 4 months, then we had to prepare for her to have open heart surgery to close up 3 holes in her heart. And I actually remember vividly because it was the first day of Ramadan. So first day of Ramadan, we had to get to the hospital at like 6 a.m. This was Lutheran General in Chicago. It's a very, famous hospital. And I remember her going in smiling. And I'll never forget that because she's such a fighter. She's such a warrior. And she recovered from open heart surgery within 2 days. I mean,
Oh,
it's like
mashallah.
unheard of, right? Mashallah, mashallah. And I just remember like making like a pact with Allah. Like I'm like, if she makes it out of this, like I'm gonna fight for her and I'm gonna be there for her. And so yeah, that was my journey into motherhood. We had her baby brother in 2009. No complications, alhamdulillah. Also, all these babies, mind you, no epidural. Just because that's kind of like my I'm known for that now. I
Perfect.
always
Yeah.
wanted it to be kind of natural.
Yeah.
It's funny with my first, when I was even considering it, because my husband had known my birth plan, he knew I didn't want epidural. And then when the pain got really bad, he was like, "Oh, suck it up." And so I always like, the nurse just looked at him when he said it. I mean, of course he said it like jokingly, but like,
Right.
so now if he's ever like in pain or anything, I'm like, "Suck it up.
Suck it up,
Suck it
buddy.
up." But anyway, so yeah, we had her brother in 2009, another sister in 2014, and then a sister in 2017, and then my baby boy, the last of them all, in 2020. And he's actually my leap year baby. So he was born on February 29th,
Oh.
2 weeks before COVID shut everything
Oh, I
down.
know.
Yep. Yep.
So yeah.
That's a big family,
That's
girl. Mashallah.
that's a big fella, mashallah, and that's honestly just a lot to unpack. And thank you so much for being so candid and sharing your story. And we're gonna hold off, I think, on some questions because I really want to just kind of go into like what your family of origin what is. And it sounds like you're in Chicago right now, but is that where you started off? And just tell us a little bit more about your family background.
Sure. So my parents, they're immigrants. Both of them actually were born in India, Hyderabad, India. My dad actually moved to Pakistan when he was one, so during that whole partition.
Mm-hmm.
So he was raised in Pakistan. And then my dad came to the US in the 70s, or actually late 60s, I would say. And he started going to college here. He wanted to go back to India to find a wife, which is kind of,
What was done?
yeah, I mean, well, everyone was like, "Why India?" And he
Yeah.
jokes that there were a lot of American girls after him. So he wanted a good girl from India. So he actually wrote a letter to his first cousin, and she found my mom. And my mom was 17. So
Oh
my
my
mom was
gosh.
17, and actually my mom wasn't even in line to get married. So she had like an older sister, and my dad like came and he's like, "Yep, I'm from America and I want to marry your daughter." And my grandma was like, "No." Like, "Who are you?" And she's 17 and we don't know anything about you, but my dad eventually wore her down.
Oh wow.
And so they got married. I think it was like probably 2 years until my mom came here.
Okay.
So they got married in 1969. They had my older sister in 1972. So there's actually a 10-year difference between my sister and me and my twin. So I have an
Mhm.
identical twin,
Oh,
which is kind of
So
unique
cool.
and special. Yeah, I love that. We have a very tight bond. So actually, my mom, when she came to America, she needed to work, and she became a licensed cosmetologist and was actually very, very successful in her career. I mean, so the 17-year-old, from India, she was actually in med school when she got married and dropped out
oh,
in India. That's what she tells me. I'm like 17 in med school, mom. And she's like, yeah. So she was kind of like this girl genius and she came here. So we lived in Virginia. We're from Virginia. East Coast. So my mom became a licensed cosmetologist and she got pregnant a lot. She had my sister and then in between about eight, nine children. Had a lot of
mm,
miscarriages. She had a couple sons, a couple babies that were born and lived only for a few hours. And
wow.
we don't really know why. I mean, other than that she was working a lot. So even when she lost her babies, she would have to go back to work and she was on her feet like, 16, 18 hours a day. So I think it really took a toll on her. And then when she found out that she got pregnant with twins, my aunt, my khala in London, she's a surgeon, and she was just like, okay, we're not taking any more chances. You come and you stay with me, and I'm going to help you during the rest of this pregnancy. And so that's exactly what she did. She flew to London with her 10-year-old daughter. And we were born very early. So we were born in the 28th week,
Oh,
um,
wow.
which is I think it's like 24, 25 weeks that is like a viable
I think now it's
pregnancy.
22.
Is it
Mm-hmm.
22 now?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, we
Back
were,
then, 28 was a big deal.
yeah. So
Yeah,
we're talking
Yeah.
exactly.
30, right,
Yeah.
38 years ago. So I think total, I was like 4 pounds and my sister was like 3.5 pounds. So,
But that's still pretty
um,
big
Mhm.
yeah,
for
yeah, she had a,
28 weeks, right?
right. So she had a C-section with both of us. And then we kind of had a very similar story to my daughter in that we needed heart surgery. So
Oh,
at 9 months in London, we had heart surgery for just one hole in our heart. But Alhamdulillah, we are fine. And my parents then moved from London to Saudi Arabia. So we were there for a couple of years. My mom continued her business. And again, it was a very lucrative career of hers. She would have clients coming to her home, like willingly coming to her home to
mm,
have her work on them. And then we came to Virginia, back to Virginia when we were 5.
okay.
So we grew up in Virginia. We went through kindergarten, elementary school, middle school, high school, and college in Virginia. And then I got married the day of my graduation, actually, I got my court marriage done. So literally
Wow.
like
Oh,
my university was like down the street from the courthouse.
Uh,
So we had my graduation, we went to the courthouse, we got married, and then actually it was a couple months later when we had the actual ceremony and then the Valima in Chicago. So I've been in Chicago for 17 years. I actually followed my twin. She got married 5 months before me to my brother-in-law, and he's from Chicago. And so when I was at her wedding, the rishta kind of came.
mhm.
And I
oh,
was like, can I just focus on my sister getting married? I'm not really interested right now. I mean,
No.
everybody was coming up to me at the
Proposals.
wedding, like,
Mhm.
we're twins, so we're 30 seconds apart. And they were like, well,
oh.
when is it going to be your turn? And I'm like, can I just like,
In 30
can,
seconds.
yeah,
Exactly. Which just
can
sounds
I
like
just
is exactly what happened.
Yep.
Yeah, pretty much. So yeah, I was like, "Oh, you're from Chicago? Well, that's interesting. That's
Yeah.
a point for you because I get to be by my sister." So Alhamdulillah, my twin and I live an hour apart. She
Mhm.
Oh,
has 3 boys and I have 3 girls and 2 boys.
Mhm.
And we've always been close, so.
I love
Mashallah.
that.
That's awesome. When we set up this interview, we did not know. We thought we were talking about your pandemic baby, but then it was so compelling, like everything else that you've been through, and yeah, been to as well. But take us down memory lane and tell us what you had to do to advocate for your oldest daughter who was diagnosed with Down syndrome, Hiba.
Yeah, so for Hiba, it's such a different experience than when you have a typical baby that you bring home. You bring your baby home, yeah, you're sleep deprived, but you're just, you're feeding the baby. It's like feeding and diaper changes, right?
Right.
I came home and literally days later, early intervention therapy started. So
Hmm.
I was having therapists in and out of my home. I mean, I'm so sleep deprived. I don't even know who's coming. So it was like speech and feeding, PT, OT. I mean, she's a baby. What are you going to work on her with? But they would put her on like an exercise ball and work
Wow.
on her like core strength. And I just remember being like, she's so little. And, like we would be like getting into a nice little nap and then doorbell rings and there's a therapist there.
Mm,
So anyways, it was very difficult because I don't know if everyone knows this, but early intervention is for the first 3 years of their life. So it was a lot for me to deal with. But we had some amazing therapists and we actually listened to their guidance. So kids with special needs, they actually go to school earlier. So my daughter
Hmm.
was going to be going to school at age 3.
mm,
And I remember like having a conversation with her occupational therapist, like, where should she go to school? And so there's two schools of thought that either kids should just, go to the regular school, their home school that they would go to if they did not have a disability. And then there are programs. And this occupational therapist kind of geared us towards this program at one of the elementary schools. And, they kind of drilled in us that one on one, smaller class size, all this is what your daughter needs. And that's how she's going to be able to catch up to her peers. And, how old am I? I don't know any different. This is my first child, right? So I don't even have any comparison.
mm,
So we just listened to everybody and she started school. Everywhere we went, she was always like bused to a different school with that program. And we never really questioned
mm,
it. It wasn't until she was 9 years old, I remember at a parent teacher conference, she was regressing. So she was
Hmm.
regressing in her skills. She hadn't learned to read yet. And I remember asking her teacher, do you think she would be better off in like a regular classroom? And her response was, not yet, but keep asking. And that just, I was like, what? Something just like a light bulb turned on inside of me. I went home and I started doing research, and the first article I came across was from the National Association of Down Syndrome. They're based out of Chicago, and it was all about inclusion. And how
Hmm.
there's like 40 years of research that says that children with special needs should be taught alongside their general education peers. So, quote unquote, normal. So they should be taught with normal peers. I felt like I was back in school. I started doing all this research, I started asking questions, and I got so much pushback from this school district. It was like I uncovered a secret that nobody wanted me to know.
mhm,
Hmm.
And even this teacher, she kind of regretted telling me that. We had meetings. So anybody who has a child with special needs knows that you have an individual education plan. So it's kind of like a document that talks about all your therapies, your goals, all your supports that you're going to need in school. So we had lots of meetings, and usually I would just attend these meetings and just sign. I was like the poster parent. I was what they wanted. They just wanted me to come and sign papers and say, you guys take the reins and you do
mm,
everything. When I started asking questions, it was like a whole nother ball game. I would be at the meeting and I would be asking and pushing for inclusion, and they kept saying no. And then I would tell them what I learned from my research. And I remember like vividly looking around the room, and some of the educators would be nodding their head like yes. So it was like I'm onto something, but they kept on saying no. And so up until now, she had only been in self-contained classrooms, so she had never even been allowed to be with her regular peers. So they had no data saying that it was not even, you know, possible
Helpful.
or it wasn't a good thing. So that's actually how I got my foot or her foot in the door. And so then they started kind of moving her and they're like, okay, well, we'll try it for like an hour a day or 2 hours a day. And what they really were doing was setting her up to fail.
Right.
So,
Mm.
they were not modifying anything for her. Up until now, her behaviors were impeccable. She was, very polite girl. She was a social butterfly. And then they put her in these situations where they didn't give her the support. And so now we started seeing behaviors. She would
Mm.
try to escape the room. She would hide under tables because she had never been in this kind of situation. And they're like, see, now look, she doesn't belong here. And I'm like, no, you haven't set her up for success. She's in this, so she was in third grade at the time, but they put her in like a first grade classroom, but with no supports.
Yeah.
So it became this whole thing. We went to mediation. Now I'm pregnant with baby number 3. I just quit my job. I was working in radiation oncology, which is a very risky field to be in when you're pregnant. I was their insurance person. So I quit my job. I'm focusing on my kids. I'm heavily pregnant. And I'm going to mediation with the school district and I'm fighting them, and they will not let go. And finally, we actually won by default because it was like the law says, so the Individual with Disabilities Education Act of 2004, they say that they have to be taught with in the least restrictive environment with their typical peers. So they would have to go to the school that they would go to if they were not disabled. And I said, well, that school doesn't have that special class. So by default, my daughter should be included.
Right.
And they had no argument for that. But this district, and I won't name them, but I did create a change.org petition that garnered 18,000 signatures against them. They finally let her do it because they had no choice, but they collected data for one whole year.
Hmm.
And after the 1 year was up, they said, yeah, we're not going to include her anymore. She didn't make any progress. So we're back to the drawing board. We filed for due process against the district. I had my baby, so I have like an infant at home, and
Oh my
I am
goodness.
hiring attorneys to fight the most like expensive, wealthiest school district in Illinois against little old me.
Mm.
And they knew it. I had
Right.
a house for 10 years. And so it wasn't like I could just go to another school district. I couldn't just, move. And they knew that. I actually did end up moving because after consulting with so many attorneys, there was a prominent special education attorney in Chicago. And he told me that even if you somehow win, there has never been a case like yours that has won, but let's say you do win. There's no inclusion police in the school. So even if the judge says she has to be included and she has to have all these supports, they don't want her there.
Right.
And
They're
you're not
Mm.
there
sabotaging.
all day. You're not all there all day. So you don't know how they're going to treat her. And he was like, I've been doing this a really long time. Go somewhere where your daughter will be welcome. And so we actually moved the night before our due process hearing. We moved to Naperville, and that is a school district that is known for inclusion. So I have my house now. I got an apartment in Naperville. So now I have two
Mhm.
places that I need to pay for. But it was the best decision of my life because we got away from this school district and we got into a district. We laid all of our cards out too on the table with this district. We said, this is what's happened. And are you going to include her or not? and they said they would. Actually, the due process, filing the due process put us in a stay put, which means they could not change her placement. So we had fought really hard to get the placement of inclusion,
Hmm.
and what they were trying to do was steal that from us. But filing the due process kind of froze everything. And so when we moved with the inclusive IEP.
Hmm.
So it was, I mean, it was all very calculated, but at the same time, I feel like a lot of it was luck, that we found this school district and they were willing to accept her and they gave her full inclusion. And alhamdulillah, it's been 5 years now and she's fully included. She's a 10th grader at the high school. She is like leaps and bounds learning. And we just had a teacher evaluator and she said her oral comprehension, like for her to be at oral comprehension of third grade is like amazing. And she says, she absorbs a lot. And I said, why do you think I was fighting for inclusion for so long? Because she can look at her peers, she likes to mimic them. There's so much that even if you don't see her showing it, like it's getting in, it's like seeping in. And also, I didn't want my other kids to be in a school district that treated children with special needs in that way. I didn't want my son to think that my son was allowed access to that elementary school just for him being him. And his sister had to fight to get her foot in the door. I mean, what does that say, right? Like what
Right.
kind of message are you sending? And that is why I moved, because I said I want my son and all my other kids to understand that her life is valuable and her education is valuable. If we don't educate her, what are we doing? She's going to be a burden on society when we're gone. And you're going to have to use your taxpayer paying dollars to take care of her, right? So why don't we teach her and educate her and do everything we can to make her a contributing member of society? And I think that is why I kept on fighting, even when I wanted to give up, even when everyone, like family members, would tell me, they're just like, why do you want her to be like, you just can't deal with the diagnosis. I had family members tell
Oh.
me that, is
Hmm.
that I just want to pretend like she's normal. And it was like just banging your head against the wall. It's like, no, I want to teach her because I want her to be a contributing member of society. I want her to be as independent as possible. I don't want other people to have to take care of her.
Exactly.
So that's in a nutshell. I know that was really long. I'm sorry, but it's been a rough couple of years, and that's what I've been fighting for.
We're all about moms advocating for their babies, so don't worry about it.
No, I definitely appreciate it. And it seems like when I was leaving Chicago to come to Virginia, you were leaving Virginia to go to Chicago. So I think we missed in the air probably because I've been
Oh,
here
how
for
funny.
almost 18 years. In October, it'll be 18 years. So I definitely love and I can hear that passion in your voice. And that just gives us a little bit of a glimpse as to what your momming philosophy is. The fact that you want to make sure your daughter's included as she should be. We will talk offline because I am curious to know what that Chicago school system was. I kind of have an idea and I'm just wondering. But I love that you're doing that. And, in being a mom of now 5 children, mashallah, in a pandemic, part of, your moniker is the keto mom. And I'm curious as to how did you take this passion for being with your children and advocating for your children and turning it and segueing it into, this keto lifestyle that you also through IG feel so strongly about?
Yeah, it's so interesting because you never know where or how Allah guides you. I was just flipping through the channels. I remember it was like December of 2018, and some show came on and it was talking about like celebrity diets and the keto diet, and I had heard it before and I had kind of dismissed it. So I have been dieting my whole life since I was 14 years old.
Mm.
I was like the chubby twin. So
Oh,
everyone, I was actually called that, and that just really, that hit me.
No.
Yeah. Oh, you're the fat twin. You're the chubby
oh
twin.
my
Um,
God.
No.
so when I was 15 years old, I actually lost 30 pounds in 2 weeks in high school. And it was drastic. I mean, people were like, whoa, what happened? And I'll tell you now, it was not the right way.
No.
I
There's
pretty
no way
much
you can do that.
Right, 30 pounds in 2 weeks. I literally starved myself to get to that weight. And so my whole life I had been dieting. And so even when I heard keto, I was just, I just dismissed it. I'm like, yep, another fad diet. But I think what caught my attention was they mentioned Halle Berry, and Halle Berry had done it, and it was so popular. And we were actually getting ready to go on a trip. We were going to the Mall of America with our kids, a road trip to Minnesota. And my husband actually, he works in a hospital, and his coworkers had been talking about keto too. So we actually watched a video by Thomas DeLauer. He's like a keto king, and we had a long road trip. So we were listening to one of his YouTube videos, and it just clicked, I was like, why, what do I have to lose? So I have never been able to lose 100% of the baby weight. I think in total, in 5 pregnancies, I've probably gained like upwards of 200, 250 pounds with each pregnancy if you combine them.
Oh, okay. I was
So
Yes.
saying.
that's a lot. It was
Yeah.
60 pounds with the first one, 45,
God.
31, 38, and 47. So if
Oh
anyone
my
wants to do the
goodness.
math for me, yeah, it's a lot. So I had never really lost the weight, and so I was looking for something, and it like hit all the marks, because I was like, well, it's not a starvation diet.
Mm-mm.
There's so many things that you can eat, and while all the things on the list I really love. I love
Hmm.
mayonnaise. I love cream cheese.
Yep.
I'm a
Bring it.
cheese addict,
Avocado.
eggs. I can do all these things. And so when we came back from Minnesota, I was just like, I'm gonna do this. I went grocery shopping. I think I started, but I didn't have groceries. And so that day I like went out and, got my keto grocery list and I shopped. I don't think I ate until like 3 o'clock that afternoon because I had to make something keto.
Mm.
And I just on a whim created the Keto Muslim Mom Instagram page. It was supposed to be like my private blog. I actually didn't tell anybody about it because I was like, I don't want this to be like every other failed diet. I want to hold myself accountable. And so that's how it started. And it just kind of grew from there. I think I tried somebody's keto chocolate chip cookie mix. And I remember them featuring me, I think, or like my picture. And that day alone, I had like 700 followers. And I was like, what's going on? My like phone keeps beeping. But yeah, like I just created it because I wanted to hold myself accountable, and I was following people and I wanted to share recipes, like if I tried a keto recipe that I really liked, I wanted to share it with others. The keto family is super, super friendly, and just everyone's supportive of each other. So that was 2019. I lost 21 pounds. It was amazing. I went to like 3 weddings that during keto. I did Ramadan keto. I mean, everyone was just like, "Okay, you're gonna slip up. When are you gonna cheat?"
Mhm.
And I'm like, "No, I don't have any desire to cheat." We were going to India that summer, and I had told all my followers, "Yep, I'm not gonna cheat." Because what's the point? I can go to India. I can stay keto. I had like, so prepared. Unfortunately, I did slip up a little bit in India. I think it was like we went out for ice cream or something in like 100-degree weather, and I wasn't going to eat. And I got ice cream for the kids, and they wouldn't finish it. And as
Mm.
most moms know,
Like,
You don't want to
Yes.
both
throw away
worlds.
ice cream, and you don't want to throw away something that you just bought. And so I was like, all right, give me that mango ice cream. And so that's kind of what started it. But actually, I was able to maintain my weight loss in India, even with, little bit cheats here and there. And it was in India that I found out I was pregnant. So
That's a
Oh.
slip up.
yeah, well, it's really interesting because I've heard this from so many ketoers that
Yeah,
there's something about keto that makes women get
more
pregnant.
fertile. Yeah.
And I hadn't known that, but like after I got pregnant and so many people would contact me, so many moms are like, same situation. I lost weight, got pregnant. And so, I we actually didn't tell people. I found out because my daughter and we were on similar cycles. And so in India, I was supposed to get it before her. And when hers came around, I was going to the store to get her supplies in India in an alley because that's how they
Where they
do.
do it.
Um, and I remember just thinking, wait a minute, I was supposed to get it before her. So I just picked up a test at the same time. And I remember the store owner kind of looking at me like, okay, on one hand, you're getting supplies and you're getting a pregnancy test on the other hand.
Covering all my
But,
bases.
anyways, yeah, and like hiding it, like hiding it when I'm coming home because I'm staying with my parents and I
Mhm.
don't want anybody to know. And anyways, I took the test, I think, in the morning, and I was a little shocked, because like you said, I had worked so hard to lose this weight and I was like on cloud nine. We had already started shopping. I had gotten outfits like tailored to my new body. I was shopping until I dropped every day. Saris and like lehengas and all these like beautiful outfits. And then, okay, I'm pregnant. I told my husband actually on FaceTime, and we both kind of had a similar reaction like, wow, but also happiness, because we had three girls and a boy. And my boy had been praying for a brother for probably his whole life. And it was funny because in India too, he made a comment to my mom when we were at the farmhouse. So, like a week, maybe a week or two before I found out. And he was talking about wanting a brother. And my mom was like, no. She was just like, you can pick up any of these kids off the street, okay? Like, don't ask your mom for any more children. So it's kind of that like mindset, I think people like to police how many kids women have, or everyone has to have an
Or don't
opinion
have, yeah.
or don't have.
Mhm.
I think that that's a very personal matter, and it's between a husband and wife. We joke because my husband always says that he was done at one, and
Mhm.
every time I would get pregnant, his coworkers would be like, "Dude, what?" Like,
Do
I
you know how
thought
to
you said
stop
no
this?
more kids. Yeah, he was
Yeah.
like, no more kids. What happened? And you wanted to be done at one, and now you have five. So, anyways, we kept it a secret. We didn't tell anybody. I would go to McDonald's in India and go to their bathroom and be vomiting,
Oh.
and come back out like with my kids, and I didn't tell the kids either because, little kids and big mouths, that secret would not have been held. So yeah, nobody knew. I came back and I really thought, okay, it's just morning sickness. It happens with every kid. Once I'm in like the second trimester, I'll be fine. I can go back to my keto because my goal has always been to be keto. It's not a diet for me, it's a lifestyle. I love it. I love how I feel on it. So this was a blow.
Mhm.
I won't even sugarcoat it. It was kind of like I felt like a failure. Here
Oh.
I have my blog and I'm, constantly hyping up the keto diet. And then the only thing I can keep down are carbs. So it was
Yeah.
very rough. And then I think in October, we finally did tell everybody, and it felt like such a relief because, okay, now I'm not lying, and I was honest with my followers. I said, this has been like an internal struggle. I'm gonna do what I have to do. And I had a lot of people reach out to me and they were so nice. And they said,
Mhm.
you gotta give yourself grace. You know,
Mm-hmm.
you're pregnant, you're creating this baby inside of you, and this baby is literally dictating what you put in your body. And at
And he
that
wants
point, it was
carbs.
just, yeah, and the baby wanted carbs and he wanted Chinese food and he wanted buckets and buckets of ice chips from
Yeah.
McDonald's. So yeah, we just kind of let him run the show. But it was really, really hard. And I, right before he was born, even was hospitalized. I was very ill, very sick. They diagnosed me with influenza A. This was
Mm.
February 20th of 2020.
Oh, wow.
So this was right around the time that COVID
I
was,
was gonna say,
you
was it
saw.
COVID? Because that
Yeah,
sounds
we
like
had COVID
COVID to
then.
me.
That's exactly what I think looking back because I was like really sick, like dog sick. And they even they kept me in a separate like darkened wing of the hospital. They didn't even want me near mother baby because they
Right.
said we don't
Yeah.
want you to infect other mothers with babies. And I remember thinking, I'm a mother with a baby in my stomach, really. I had never felt so bad in my life. They had to like suit up just to come into my room.
Oh, they totally
They
treated you
acted,
like you were COVID. Yeah. Yeah,
yeah,
they knew
I was
you
gonna
had
say
it.
they
They
knew
knew.
it, but they weren't ready to like talk about it yet. That's what it
Yeah,
kind of
yeah,
yeah.
sounds like to
Yeah.
me.
it doesn't.
Exactly.
And
They were
actually,
hiding.
it would make so much sense that Alhamdulillah, Alhamdulillah, we've been okay.
Yeah,
And I've been
alhamdulillah.
breastfeeding this baby. And so I'm like, maybe I already had it because,
Mhm.
I've been able to, Alhamdulillah, not catch it in over a year. I mean, of course, we've taken precautions, but like I said, my husband's an essential healthcare employee and he's been working with COVID patients from the
Mhm.
get-go.
Mhm.
Every single day, we would have him come home and, sanitize everything and strip down and go in the shower. So yeah, sometimes I wonder, like, did I have it and do I have the antibodies and did I pass that on to my baby? And is that why, Alhamdulillah, we've been okay? But yeah, so I don't really consider me having a baby in the pandemic, but definitely my postpartum was spent in isolation, in
Mhm.
quarantine,
Mhm.
Yeah.
nobody in or out.
Yeah. And it sucks because you know what it's like pre-pandemic, right? Like what the
Yeah,
fourth trimester, that postpartum period is supposed to look like with the support and your sister and maybe your mom and everything. But not having that, I think those moms felt it more. I'm sure first-time moms during this last year also felt it, but they don't know exactly what they missed, right? So there's a
right.
little bit less of an edge on it. So in terms of what you loved having to put that off because of this pregnancy and then this postpartum period where you're now loving on 5 children total. um, Tell us kind of how you got back to your passion, because I've been following your journey on Instagram and I see where the turn is coming, but share with our audience like how you've come back to it slowly, even if you're not right where you were back in 2018, 2019, what you're doing to continue the lifestyle that you love, or how you've modified it so that you can continue to live the lifestyle that you love.
Yeah, so when the shutdown happened, he was 2 weeks old. And I had wanted to breastfeed. That's always been my desire. I was not able to breastfeed my first three children. I
Mhm.
was only successful with the fourth. And so with the fifth, I kind of knew what needed to be done in order to breastfeed. And I also reached out to a lot of people on Instagram and asked for advice. And I kind of was hearing the same thing that any kind of dieting, especially keto, would impact my milk supply.
Mhm.
And I just could not, I couldn't cope with that. My desire to breastfeed was so much greater than my desire to lose weight at that point. And so I chose my baby. But I did do a lot of low carb, but then I would drink regular milk. I was eating oatmeal because a lot of people said that that would help. I think it was only a couple weeks, maybe 7 weeks or 8 weeks, and then we were in Ramadan. And so I was fasting. I was fasting while breastfeeding in a pandemic. So a lot of things going on. But I never lost sight that my goal was keto. So I was still posting, I was still doing a lot of low carb meals and trying to help other moms. Um, I will say that I did kind of feel not like a hypocrite, but I felt a little bit like I was not 100% successful because I thought of my success as being 100% keto. So it was a lot of grappling with that in my mind. And then I realized that, keto is a lifestyle and there's so many versions of it.
Hmm.
There's so many people that do OMAD, which is 1 meal a day. There's so many people who do intermittent fasting. There's others who do a low carb version of keto. There's people who do dirty keto. There's people who do lazy keto. There's so many ways that you can do keto that are still good for you, right? Because any little change that you make is a change in the right direction.
Hmm.
So actually, I was able to lose about 20 pounds postpartum, which was pretty great considering that we've been in quarantine, not going out of the house, not doing anything. But then again, life threw me for a loop because I stepped on a piece of glass when my baby was only a couple weeks old. Which made me not able to walk for a little bit. It actually healed, but when it healed, I was told by the podiatrist that two fibromas were created at the site of the injury. And these were benign, but they needed to be taken out. So now I'm 20 pounds down from having the baby. I'm in a really great place. It's summer of 2020. We're all starting to get out a little bit more. We're doing barbecues. And now I need to go in to have foot surgery. Mind you, I have not had surgery since I was 9 months old and had heart surgery.
Oh, wow.
So this was, it was something that I wasn't prepared for, but something that I needed to have done. I think last minute I was even trying to back out. Um, and my podiatrist said, this is something that could get bigger. It could get bigger and it could be more harmful. So, I really recommend you having this surgery. So I have a 6-month-old baby that I'm exclusively breastfeeding. I have to go in for surgery. And it was outpatient and under anesthesia. I come out and I had to pump and dump my milk because of all the
Mm.
heavy anesthesia I was in. And
That
then,
breaks my heart because that is such a fallacy and old medicine.
oh,
Mhm.
I won't tell you that
Mhm.
you could have saved that milk. I'm so sad. I'm
okay.
so sad for your
Okay.
baby.
Oh, wow. I was actually really sad too because, it was so many hours of not pumping.
Yeah.
So I had such a good amount and like to throw that away.
It's
But anyways,
heartbreaking.
when I came to, I actually asked them for sugar-free snacks.
Mhm.
So they actually gave me like sugar-free cookies and Sprite Zero.
Jello. I was gonna
Yeah,
say or
no,
Jello.
Sprite, yeah, Sprite Zero. So like, can you even imagine? Like, I come out of surgery and my first thing is I want to be keto.
Priority.
Yes,
Mhm.
priority. Give me all the keto.
Yeah.
And then, my husband comes and picks me up and I have to breastfeed the baby in the car because this poor baby has been without milk for 6 hours and he
Mhm.
doesn't do
Aw.
anything else. I think the night before my surgery, I had made like,
A couple meals.
um, no, he didn't drink milk. He didn't drink
Oh.
formula. He didn't drink any milk.
No, I
He'd
mean your
throw the bottle.
expressed breast milk he
Nope,
hadn't. He
nope,
wouldn't
he
take a
wouldn't do
bottle.
that
Yeah.
either. So
Mhm.
actually, we had just started him on solid foods. So
Mhm.
I had frozen a bunch of ice cubes of food.
Mhm.
So he had had his morning milk before I went into surgery, and then he had his baby food, and he had his nap. And literally, when my husband came to get me, he was famished and ready for his milk. So here I am with this big boot on my foot. I'm still groggy from having this huge surgery and I'm breastfeeding my baby. So it was definitely a turning point. I didn't because I had already healed from stepping on the glass, I thought that my recovery would be similar, but it's not because it was a surgery.
Mm.
I was using a walker to go to the bathroom. I needed help to hold the baby. My husband was able to take off a couple days from work, but he's the only breadwinner. He's the only
Yeah.
one working. He couldn't take off. I had no family support. My sister is an hour away. So it was a wake up call for
Yeah.
sure. And through all of that, of course, I wanted to stay keto, but like the first couple of days, I was reliant on my husband to make me food. And I
Yeah, of
asked him to
course.
make me keto food, and he did.
Aw.
But I think that really turned everything around because it was like I was successful, and now I'm going back to the starting point. I started gaining the weight back that I had lost because I'm immobile and I'm not able to exercise or do anything. The kids are back into school now. They're doing remote learning. I would have to take a walker all the way to my daughter's room to wake her up for school and log her into class.
Mm.
And I can't even tell you like what that does to somebody, especially somebody who's worked so hard to be healthy and active. And now I can't even walk.
Yeah.
So it did definitely take a toll on me. And so we're talking about now October 20, no, I'm sorry, September 2020 when all of this is happening. And then, slowly I was getting better. In October, I had always been like really into keto recipes, finding some really good keto dessert recipes, and I would make keto treats for my husband's coworkers. And they kept saying, "You really should sell these. You really should start a business." And I'm like, "Are you serious? I have 5 kids. I'm just recovering from surgery. I'm doing remote learning with, these kids. I cannot handle one more thing on my plate." But everyone kept pushing me. And so I just took a leap. And so I started Sadia's Keto Kitchen on October 14th of 2020. And initially it was just my husband's coworkers placing orders, and I thought it was just going to be, kind of small, and it just kind of blew up. So Alhamdulillah,
Mashallah.
we're like going now, I think 6, 7 months into it. And it's been amazing, because this passion that I had for keto recipes and keto meals and making that accessible and keto-fying meals, I wanted to show everyone that you can keto-fy anything. You
Really.
have a taste, if you have a taste for ice cream, there's a keto recipe for it.
Mm-hmm.
There's keto bread. And actually, within the past 2 years, the industry has just blown up.
Yeah.
Whereas before we had to make our own keto bread, now you can just go to Walmart or Costco and buy zero net carb keto bread.
Yeah.
So yeah, I've been really busy with the
Well,
catering.
I don't mean to interrupt because all this talk about food is making me starving and I have to break my fast in just a little bit. So I'm going to be the one question I have for you is, do you ship to Virginia? Because girl, send some of that over to me. I would
She likes
love
prepared
to
meals,
have.
Sadia.
I
So
love
it's really
prepared
funny.
meals.
Actually, my sister is in Virginia, my older sister, and I just recently sent some dessert bars to her. My mom was going there. We are looking into shipping right now. The main concern is how to keep them, cold
Fresh and
and
cold.
fresh.
Yeah.
Yeah, we shipped to Connecticut, and there was a delay for a couple of days with USPS. So that was not helpful. So we're looking
Yeah.
into it. So I will definitely let you guys know if, inshallah, that
Inshallah.
is something that we can do in the future.
Well, let's do that and consider me as your number one person to order from,
Number two.
especially, number two. So you have two people right now, and I'm sure all of your fans, because, Uzma has gotten me a little bit into keto just so to kind of like regulate my hormones. And I've been kind of just fasting, like, drinking my water in the morning and fasting. So I will be joining you guys, inshallah, on this journey because same thing. I've never had weight issues. but because of my thyroid, broke my ankle in 2 places on a Ninja Turtle. That's a whole nother podcast. And that's what caused the weight gain, because I'd always worked out.
Think she
Super
froze a little bit.
excited that you are on this you're on this journey, and we're glad we're following you. But we have this new segment that we're doing with everybody, and it's called Rapid Fire. Whereas I'm going to tell you a question, and you got to tell me the first thing that comes on your mind. And you see it, the cool music. I'm just now hearing it, so I'm so excited about this. Okay,
Okay.
what is your favorite book right now?
I actually just read The Push.
Hmm.
I have to write
I'll have
It's
this
to
down.
add
kind of
that
a
to my.
thriller. Yeah, it's kind of a
Ooh,
thriller.
write it down. If you were to be any animal,
Sorry, I think I lost you guys for a sec.
if you were
Oh,
to
we're
be
back.
any animal, what animal would you be?
A giraffe. They're so elegant.
Oh, they are so elegant with their beautiful necks
Long
and all that
necks.
good stuff. And because it is getting close to my iftar, what keto-friendly food are you serving for iftar today?
So today we actually are doing just straight dinner. I'm going to be making a keto tuna wrap. But one dish that I just came across are keto pakoras. And they are
Ooh.
so good. Actually, my 12-year-old anti-keto son said that he
Loves them.
loved them. And I found a really great recipe. Her name is Keto with Sarah, and she has some YouTube videos. But yeah, if you are looking for something savory and you want that fried
Mhm.
food, look at keto pakoras.
Yeah.
Ooh,
And I'll
we are
share my
gonna do
keto
that.
pakora recipe with you because I do a cauliflower one.
Ooh.
Ooh, I'm so hungry.
Yeah.
I'm so hungry, and thank you guys for letting me pass this time during our during my last hour of Ramadan, so of the day for iftar. And thank you so much for joining us today and sharing just a little bit of your journey. I look forward to following you also on IG for the 2 times a month that I go on, and following your journey. I really appreciate you being
I'll
here
be there every
today.
day following the recipes, Sadia. Thank you so
Thank
much for
you. Thank you
sharing your
so
motherhood
much for having
story
me.
and keto
Yes.
story.
Thank
This
you
is super
guys.
fun.
It was a pleasure.
This episode of Mommyingwhilemuslim is brought to you by Guidance Residential. They're offering a Ramadan gift to you with $500 off your refinancing. Go ahead and click on our links in order to find out how to get that. This episode is also sponsored by Muslim Kids TV, where you can find over 15,000 resources, including Islamic videos, games, and ebooks for your children. Use code MKTV2021 to get a 25% discount off of your annual subscription.